Welcome everyone to chapter 17. It's being led by Lisa today, so take it away.
All right, so this chapter is called A Fearful Awakening, and I had a number of topics. I wanted to keep it pretty straightforward and direct so that we could know what we're focusing on in our discussions. And also because Mila had sent out some questions for us to channel with Aphraar if we get time. So I think that would be really neat if we can get to that. All right, feeling a bit nervous, a bit excited, but the fear just welled up. So I'm going to try to be as sincere in myself as possible. You guys can check me if I'm too much facade. All right, so to start off, at the very beginning of chapter 17, we find ourselves, or Aphraar is standing with Rael at the very spot where he first started his journey in the spirit world, in the middle of the fourth sphere. And this is where many paths lead off to different locations in the spirit world. And his perception of it has changed quite a bit. So pretty much the first paragraph of this chapter on page 140 for the PDF version. I think that's the one you guys are all using, right? The PDF version, yeah. So it says, I just took from the quote and shortened it a bit. So the scene itself was practically the same. The remarkable change that had been wrought was entirely in the condition of the beholder. Aforetime, my strong desire was to move backward in the direction of the mists. Now I was anxious to move in a contrary way and cross the Rubicon into the spiritual. Then I viewed the varied roads of what I called the prismatic landscape artistically. Now every individual tint in that symphonic harmony throbbed with life, inspiration, and revelation. Then I wondered at the seeming lack of law, order, and organization. Now I saw not only the wisdom, but also the loving kindness that was manifested in the arrangement. So my first question that I wanted to throw out to everybody is, why do you feel that Rael has drawn Aphraar's attention to this location for a second time? What was his purpose? Michael?
So that he could see that he had progressed, so that he'd be in the same place and go, oh, this has different meaning for me now, and have an appreciation for what probably he wasn't, of all the changes that he wasn't aware of.
All right. Any other ideas or to add on to what Michael's contributed? Go ahead, Michaela.
Rael just speaks of how by going back, you're able to learn deeper lessons. So it's an opportunity to just expand upon what's already been learned and to see the change.
And why do you feel it's important to notice a change in ourselves? Why would that have any value? How would that be helpful to us to notice a change? Go ahead, Judith.
Well, I guess it would give you faith that change is possible. If you can actually do one change and you feel you can't change it all, suddenly you see, oh my God, change is possible. And so then anything is really possible, any change.
So faith building and faith, which is a huge quality on this journey. Yeah. Any other comments about that? Oh, sorry. I just noticed the hands up. I'm apologizing. I was seeing just like that. Okay. I don't know who was first. Was it Selena or Virginia? It doesn't matter. Okay. We'll go with Selena and then Virginia next.
Okay. I see it as, if you can see the changes from here that you've experienced in this amount of time, just remember where you are now, you're going to also have that same experience. Like that, you're going to constantly be progressing and changing. It will always look different when you go back. And so that's something to really keep in mind when you're working with others, which I thought really tied in well with the experience they had with the cleric. I felt that they were hand in hand, those two lessons.
So are you saying, Selena, you're feeling that it builds like a not only a faith, but a compassion. Is that what you're naming? Like a compassion for the journey and for others struggling?
Yeah, you just feel it different. Like it's not seeing it, but you feel it different. And you feel how the people are in it are different. And so when he pointed out with the cleric, like you can't feel this yet, but you will. Like you will get more perspective as you progress. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Virginia, go ahead.
I think all the points, a lot of them have already been made. I also just felt that because of Aphraar's changes, the soul work that he's doing, it's changed his perception. And to see how you can have the same scene, but your perception will be different when you come upon it again, because you have changed. So he has changed, and it's showing him how much that changes in his perception and perspective, and his emotions that are being triggered are totally different. Like now he sees so much love, whereas it wasn't the same like that the first time, which is really cool. Like that's really cool.
Yeah. Right. I think it was Michaela and then Michael after Michaela.
I'm finding at the moment that to be able to see change in my external environment, it helps me to believe in myself when I don't want to. You know, I'm really good at telling myself that I'm failing. So to see that has helped.
Yeah. I just want to comment briefly on what Michaela said and then Michael. I know that a friend who's on the path writes notes of the specific law of attraction changes she notes along the way, so she can go back and refer to them, because it's so faith instilling when you're in those points, when you're in the midst of the thick of the change. So yeah, that's great. That's exactly what you were just saying, Michaela. Yeah, beautiful reminder. Michael.
2 points that come to mind for me are, one is that God is making these changes as we participate in the process. So since I'm not in charge of it myself, it's like a revelation to me to see how much I've changed through God's handiwork. And also it's like the more not that I know this, but the more souls growth we have, we can see more the laws in effect, the love of God, the plan, the influences that come together. And so we'll probably do that all of our lives, keep coming back and seeing more and more detail, just more and more with amazement. So it's kind of peering closer and closer at God's handiwork.
Yeah, I know for myself, and then we'll go to Mila. I'll just share something briefly. I notice when I go back and listen to the same video of Divine Truth, anything that has real truth in it, it's like I'm like, wait, I never heard this whole section. He told this whole story. Like you're seeing deeper and deeper and more details, just as you were pointing out, Michael. And I just had also a curiosity about you saying it's God's doing, but I'm wondering also, are you taking credit for your own will involvement in engaging the process too?
No, my will's pretty weak, so I'm still at the stage of just being blown away by God, I guess. I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, cool. Okay, Mila.
I was wondering if, well, according to how Aphraar was phrasing his experience of coming back to the place, he felt when he first showed up there, he must have had some questions or some assessments that this whole thing looks chaotic. How does everything gets figured out? You know, who's in charge? What are the rules? Everything looks so random. And my feeling is that God hears our questions. Even though we forget that we asked these questions, God has heard our questions. And once the framework was created to understand the answers, God will bring it back to the question to make sure that the question was answered satisfactorily. So sometimes I have some experiences where I go, oh, I forgot and I asked that. or I had forgotten that I was upset about something, but God made sure that to come back and to have it resolved within myself. And the second point, I was wondering, I think becoming at one with God is where you can truly feel and believe that everything God does is perfect. So I think these are the experiences where you can, Aphraar is beginning to see the perfection and beginning to have complete faith in what God does and why. And that peace, that change, that soul change that happened in us is part of the purification process towards that one. So I think Aphraar is arriving in those emotional places where he has complete faith that God's way is perfect and God's timing is perfect. God's way of purifying us is perfect. That's kind of like a, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Well said, yes. So let's go on to the next question, which is, have you ever returned to a location, say from earlier in your life or when you were a child, but experienced seeing it from quite a different set of eyes, different vantage point? And if so, if you have had that experience, do you feel that it's a sign of your own inner change or your own progression, your own spiritual growth? Wondering if anybody's had that experience. Not really? Is that pretty much a no for most of us? Or even just a mini experience of it? Oh,
You said
okay.
it.
Now I'm seeing hands. Okay, they're popping up. I'm sorry, I'm not looking for the golden hands. Okay, was it Selena first and then Michaela and then Michael? I
Michael.
don't know. Michael first, sorry. Michael.
For me, the situation is, well, situational. Interactions with my parents, things that have made, would have a couple months ago made me angry and push back. I'm feeling softer and more gracious. So that's happening to me. Less anger on my part.
Thank you.
Same situation, same scenario, but very different response from your end, more loving. Do you feel more faith that you've made progress through that experience, Michael?
No, it surprises me. I still think it's an accident, so I'd like to see it a few more times before I know.
I hear you.
And I still feel irritation.
You mean you're not a perfect angel yet? Angel one day. All right. Okay. Was it Selena or Michaela next? I don't real. Okay, let's go with Michaela and then we'll go to Selena after.
I recently returned to my hometown, and and in other areas as well, I just find I'm realizing how sad I actually was. So I guess that's showing me that I'm becoming more sensitive. So yeah, it's quite confronting.
So it's not necessarily oh, you're saying that you're noticing how much more sensitivity you have in returning to your home, Michaela. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just get more of a sense of how I was actually feeling when I was there, except for the fact that I was numb to it when I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Selena.
I returned to my hometown after my parents had passed, and I realized that they had left town. I think the story was that they had been phased out of the business that they owned. But when I returned, it was still standing exactly as it was when they owned it. And I realized that they had been let go as leasing managers because of their issues that they had, and just how, but they lied about it. It was just brought me to a place of more compassion for my parents, realizing how hard that must have been for them to kind of be humiliated and leaving town. And, it just changed things for me. Like, you just see things through different eyes, and you go back. Yeah. Going back to your hometown can be, after being away for 30 or 40 years, can be very enlightening. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've touched on this already, but I'm wondering if anybody wanted to add anything more kind of in summarizing this topic of retrospection. How is retrospection valuable in our lives? what purpose can it serve as we attempt to journey this path, divine truth path? I mean, I think we've already touched on it, but
Virginia?
gotcha, darn, Mila. Thanks.
I find it really great for faith building for myself, and to see that I have made some progress, because I get very stuck in that beating myself up for not having figured everything out yet kind of thing, in that space where I can be really hard on myself about it, about not being where I think I should be. And then when I actually do look at it and I think, oh yeah, there are changes here. There are changes here, and it really helps to build my faith and to continue on.
Well said. I think that's a good summary. And I want to move on to the next topic, which is a fearful awakening, which is the chapter's title. And thank you, everybody, for your contribution on that first one. So Aphraar and Rael next come across a former church cleric who is a new arrival in the spirit world. He is extremely upset about the filthy clothing that he wears and asks to speak to an authority about it. So this is from page 145 from the PDF version. The quote is, "Then comes the rude awakening as the hand of truth arouses the sleeper to arise and see." What is this rude awakening referring to, do you think? Do you all want me to read that one more time? Would that be helpful, or you're just thinking?
Selena?
Oh, thanks, Mila. Sorry. Oh, you're muted, Selena.
I find it interesting that he even tries to rip at his clothing, like his clothing is part of him. And it's not like on earth where you can just change your clothes and you can look like whatever you want, whoever you want. And you just can't. And it's trying to so kindly explain to him that you are simply reflecting who you are. You created these clothes, and he doesn't get it. But yeah, it's very different. Very different. I think just accepting that one truth when you pass is huge. It's not the same.
That's part of the cleric's rude awakening, definitely, right
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody want to comment more on the rude awakening or a fearful awakening, which is the chapter's title that this cleric's going through, or any more comments on that? If not, we can move on. Okay. All right. So second question, what desires are generated in Aphraar in watching this cleric with his ministering angel? And so we'll just leave it with that first part of the question. What desires are generated in Aphraar? Okay, Virginia.
He wants to offer assistance because he can feel how much he's struggling and suffering in his own in the current condition that he's in. And so he really wants to offer assistance, but then Rael tells him why there's only so much that can be done for his own, and it's for his highest good, really.
What do you think is the feeling driving Aphraar's desire to assist him?
Question.
Virginia?
I think he can feel his struggle and how much pain he's in.
Yeah. So Aphraar is trying to take away, Aphraar is wanting to help the man, like to kind of like, because the man has now earned a consequence. And Aphraar is hoping to kind of alleviate that consequence somehow, to make it lighter, shorter, or something. Like he wants that changed to help him out. But Rael is saying that there's perfection even in that, which is kind of like, I'm struggling with that piece myself. I'm like, but, come on, there's gotta be, so I'm struggling with how can I see the perfection? I can't see the perfection in that right now. I would be where Aphraar is, where I'm like, there's gotta be a way to shorten his suffering. Like he didn't know, or I got 20 lists coming up right now with why his consequence should be alleviated somehow. Yeah.
Judith,
Judith?
and then Selena.
Yeah, I was just thinking he empathizes because the man just is completely clueless as to why this is happening. He has no idea why. And it's interesting because thank God he's asking, in a sense. The man is so angry and upset, and you think, well, he's all hoity-toity about himself, but at least he's asking the question through his anger. And I think Aphraar has a lot of empathy for that. The man doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Aphraar's always said like how fortunate he feels that people explain things to him.
Yeah.
Doesn't he at times even feel like, why was I so lucky to have all this?
Yeah. And the beauty of the cleric getting emotionally riled up is that then with that arises questions. And with that, there's space for an answer to come in, for him to even receive answers. So emotional volatility is a good thing. It gets things moving.
Yeah, right. It's better than those cases that pass over that are completely like sort of never exercise their desires one way or the other. They're really hard to help, right? At least this guy is indignant and wants to demand to talk to an authority for better clothes. Yeah.
And also, it kind of ties into the vein of kind of like Aphraar's main desire that I've noticed through the books, which is if only people on earth knew the truth, if only they knew something. So here he is feeling about, oh, this guy didn't know. If only he knew, he could have been saved from having all of this suffering. So I think it kind of ties into that core passion Aphraar's had that drove the existence of the books to begin with.
Exactly. And in fact, I'm just going to read a brief quote and then we'll go to Selena. It says, as I look back upon this incident, this is 149, I think, for you all. I cannot recall an experience that filled me with a greater yearning to do something to alleviate its consequences than the case we were then leaving behind us. Like that just really instilled in him, that solidified the desire. I'm going to talk to the earth again and help Earth. So let's hear from Selena. Selena.
Oh, what really stuck out for me in that was how Rael said, not for your personal satisfaction. It seems to me he was trying to tell him that you're not suited even to help this person. There is a person who's better qualified. And at some point, you will understand what that means and you will help those that you are the best suited to help. And your motives are maybe not as pure as they should be or could be yet, because personal satisfaction does not seem to me like the objective of helping others.
Yeah,
that it should be the objective. So it was a bit of just a reprimand. Like it's like he could feel what you want. I can feel what you want out of this, and you're kind of missing the mark there.
Yeah, and
I found that really interesting.
It kind of built again. It kind of deepened the faith of God has a plan.
Yeah. So it's not for your personal satisfaction. We all learn as we go along, and we all are suited to what we are called to help with. We are drawn to where we are best able to serve. Exactly. So personal satisfaction is not a factor here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Selena. Michaela.
Just on what Selena said, but something that really just kind of hit me today when I read the chapter again this morning was that God's made it so we all have to work together. Like no one of us can bring someone all the way through. We all have what we can contribute, and it's like this puzzle that all works together of handing it over and allowing the next person in. And that just really hit me this morning, that the beauty of that way of creating it, that we have to work together to save just one person.
Did you guys ever play that monkey game where you had to pick up monkeys' arms
Oh,
like
yeah.
from the ground? I'm just picturing the monkeys making a chain and they're all helping each other pull each other up. And that's like our spirit guides and all of us. Some of us help one another at different times. Yeah, that's really beautiful point, Michaela. So how much do you currently feel that you have an honest desire to help your brothers and sisters who are suffering right now? Anybody want to comment on that? Just I personally am growing that desire, but boy, a year ago when I joined the mediumship group, I said to Robin, yeah, I'm pretty selfishly focused right now. I'm not in a space where I really want to be that helpful. Okay, let's go with Michael. It's
Michaela.
okay, Mike. Oh, Michaela first? Okay, go ahead, Michaela. Sorry, I'm looking down.
It's okay. I've noticed with myself at the moment that there is an element of desire, definitely, to help. But I find when I start to try and help, I want to push and I want it to be quicker and I want to create change quickly. So, and I think that's driven by me wanting to get some kind of satisfaction, but also wanting to alleviate someone else's suffering. So what I find that I do when I see that in myself is I just completely step back and pray to God and realize that I know nothing. And that's challenging though, because my faith in God is still developing, and, you know, to really even trust that God's going to help this person is hard, but it feels good though to just step back and be like, I have nothing here. This is not mine.
Yeah, prayer is quite something, like to even just say a prayer for them and know to exit yourself when your ego's getting involved or whatever. That's probably the best thing you could do for that situation. It's beautiful. Michael.
What I get from reflecting on this is I do want to help people. I do want to reduce suffering, but I would tend to do it without discernment. I would probably step into law of attraction and I'd be there too soon. So if I were in that situation, Rael would be reprimanding me for interfering. So I haven't learned the value of a good suffering carried to the end, I guess.
Okay, do you feel that you, when you pass over, oh, sorry, Judith, did you want to make a comment on how you feel currently about assisting your brothers and sisters who are suffering?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I was a little late.
No worries.
But yeah, I started helping somebody officially, you know, and I feel that I'm still in a lot of addiction doing it. Like I want a purpose. I want to be a good person. I want people to like me, blah, blah, blah. But if I hadn't taken, like knowing all that, not done it, I still have helped the person, but also I learned a lot myself. And the law of attraction worked in this too, because now I look at the person and that person actually pushes my buttons in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of similarity between myself. And then there's things about that person that it's like, wow, that's a pretty amazing quality, you know, that he has. And I wouldn't have learned that if I hadn't have just kind of jumped in the water, I guess. And, you know, because I mostly don't jump in the water. I mostly hold myself back, but on this occasion I did. So, but like you said, just trying to really keep aware of what we're doing. That's an addiction and that. So this button that can continue, we can continually learn and continually help. And it's a better quality of help, I guess.
I love that. I love that point, Judith. Sorry, Mila, go ahead.
To become aware of your real motivation and to not judge the motivation as it come up, and then to allow the motivation to be felt emotionally and not judge that either. Kind of try to have faith that currently for me, trying to have faith that by doing this, something is going to get solved. That's where I'm at. I'm feeling the real motivation, and it's embarrassing and nasty, and just surrender to the emotion, and then gonna see in a couple of months down the road if it gets easier, if the motivation goes away, if, you know, we'll see. I'm in the middle of the experiment. We'll find out. Will I get nastier or nicer? We'll find out.
But if we never take the action, like Judith was saying, she tends to hold back more. And I'm similar to you, Judith. And I see Mila taking action a lot and just jumping in. You know, if you never take the action, you never get to dredge up and show yourself, oh, my motivation's impure here, and start to see and go through the process of purifying yourself and your desires through the process of the action. So I think that's a really important point.
Or to even discover if the technique you're using even works.
Right.
You have to figure that out. At this point, I'm willing to feel my motivation, which in itself took a couple of processes because of my judgment and shame about it. And now I'm tired. I just give up. I give it in, like, okay, fine, here's a motivation. Let's see where this will take me. So I'm just trying another technique, see where it takes me, and then based on the outcome, try another technique.
A lot of experimenting going on. That's cool. Yep. Michaela's been patiently waiting. Go ahead, Michaela.
Just in regards to helping others, one thing that's becoming really clear to me is that, like, if we're not prepared to feel our own pain, which I realize I haven't been, you know, I've been talking about it and dancing around it, but not really diving in, then our motivation for helping someone else is going to be to stop their pain.
Yes.
So really, I should, you know, like, just being really honest about that, how much I don't want to feel my pain. So I probably don't want you to feel your pain.
I love that. That would be really great to just have that level of honesty with someone. All right, y'all, let's jump into the next topic, which is facade, which I feel like is a really big part of this chapter and the example of this cleric. So there's a quote that really stood out to me on page 145, 146 in the PDF. And I think it's also from the Bible as well. So it says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are like whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness." So my question to you all is, have you ever felt, can you relate to that feeling of having a nice appearance on the outside, having it together? Did you ever feel in your life like a whited sepulcher, but on the inside you were really covering over a lot? Like, I know I can say for myself, I still have quite moments of facade around people, and so I'm really working on that one. But it's just it gets more exhausting now for me personally to do it. So some part of me just kind of wants to soften and just drop. And if people don't like it, like me, then that's so be it. But I still definitely have, you know, it comes up when I'm scared or whatever, and I don't want to feel my fear. So I'm just curious if anybody wanted to contribute. Have you ever felt like, you know, really in facade in your lives in the past or currently? Go ahead, Judith.
Well, it's interesting because that question, I kind of didn't even notice it. So that kind of shows you right there how I feel. I feel I'm I do things that I know are wrong on purpose, and mostly to myself, you know, and running away from my emotions. And so I feel I'm pretty dark. And then I do put on a facade, but I think it's kind of challenging because in order to grow, we have to embrace that darkness. But then you feel like I would be dark all the time. I guess, I don't know, I would be an awful person. So.
Yep.
You know, but want to have you around. I don't know.
Yeah, and what's the world going to do with that? If they see you're sloppy, messy, dark, evil, like, I'm never going to survive if I'm really who I am, like the ugly, grotesque innards that covers the beautiful soul underneath that is still there. Yeah. Virginia.
Yes, I hear what everybody's saying. That's true. And I do feel like now that I'm becoming more aware of my addictions and that I am in facade, that when it's actually happening sometimes, and I know that I'm doing it just because I want to keep the peace, And sometimes I get, if I don't, it's like, well, you used to kind of, I'm getting that kind of attitude. It just isn't feeling so good anymore.
To maintain the facade, you mean?
Just to be doing those things and to just be taking those actions because I want to keep the peace, or I just want to not be attacked and get acceptance from people. Now that I'm becoming more aware of it, it just isn't feeling so good. And I'm looking at it and going, well, you're really going to have to stop. And so when I have the courage to do so, then sometimes it's like, well, you used to like doing that, or you used to do this. It's that kind of thing.
Do you mean from others, Virginia, or from yourself?
From other people.
Oh yeah, you're getting flack for not for your
I'm
changes.
not getting that, and that's the part that I've not want. And it actually didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Somebody said that, it's just, well, it's okay. You don't have to get it. Like I just don't want to do that, kind of thing. But I don't always have the courage to do it. And hopefully, as I keep going, that if the awareness increases, that I will.
Yeah.
So,
The more it starts to feel painful, the more you'll be motivated to, like, it's already happening. You're already feeling like the pain
yeah.
of doing it is not worth the suffering.
Yeah, there's a lot more discomfort in it than there used to be.
Yeah. That's what I've heard happens over time, that the addiction starts to feel painful. I'm counting on it. I'll let you
Okay.
know if it happens.
The pain is a blessing. That's still got a question mark for me. I part of me knows that it's supposed to, that it really is a blessing. I am being guided and redirected, but I'm still like, the whole pain thing is still not like, I'm still not real cool with it yet.
That's gonna come up in our discussion if we get to it next. So I'm glad you touched on that topic. Does anybody want to share briefly if there's any areas of your facade that you're working on currently, that you're aware of coming up, that you're really trying to drop and work on, and then just also, what do you feel like when you first discover a new area of facade in yourself? How does it feel for you when somebody points it out to you or you see it? So I'm just curious. I'm going to throw out both those questions at the same time. If you wanted to share if you're working on an area right now, or how you feel when you first discover. All right, so let's go with, I don't know who was first. Was it Selena or Judith?
Judith.
Judith, thanks, Mila.
Well, I kind of feel like I follow divine truth in a facade. Like I do it, I intellectually understand a lot, but it's not emotionally hit me. And I have this issue where I want to tell people about it. And sometimes I get really distracted, like in reading this book, for example, I start to go off in this thought where I'm like, oh, how can I explain this to so-and-so or this person? And it's like, why am I doing that for? It's not about me explaining it. So the facade about wanting to be knowledgeable or important, but also, isn't it important that we tell people anyway about it, this truth, and how fearful I am to not even tell people in the first place? But that's what I'm realizing, that what I see myself doing.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that, Judith. Selena. You're muted still. Yeah.
Okay. I've been working through gender role anger. That's been a pretty big one. And the other day I had the opportunity to test it a little bit. My husband spilled a glass of wine at my daughter's house. And he kind of looks at me, oh, what do I do? And I just sat there. I just sat there. No.
You weren't being the good woman,
No,
Selena?
I did not. It was weird, but it was cool at the same time. I had absolutely, no, I don't have to do that just because I'm the girl.
And you connect it to the emotion
You
about.
can find a piece, and knowing that that my daughter's mother-in-law is definitely into her gender roles. And I'm working with competition with her, and she did jump up and do it because my husband stood there flapping his hands, sort of. So that was really neat.
Sounds like
Yeah.
a good set of triggers
Oh,
because
yeah.
you didn't engage
It's
the
awesome.
addiction.
I did not. And it felt really good, oddly enough, even though other women did the job in my stead, you know, it still was good. I feel like that was good.
Thanks, Selena. All right, for time's sake, I'd like to jump into the next topic, unless anybody had a pressing thing they wanted to add to facade. Any last comments on facade or no? Okay. So this next one is soul purification. And I really related to the quote where it was talking about passing through like an inferno of purification. So this is from page 149 of the PDF. You need the most skilled and careful treatment to secure your recovery. It will be painful to begin with due to your neglect to take precaution in the past, nor will you be left to bear it unattended. You may have to pass through a Babylonian furnace on your way, but fear not, the fire is only an agent for purification to carry away and get rid of the filth. So the question is, have you ever felt like you were in the middle of a furnace of purification? And if so, during that time, did you feel completely alone going through it, or were you aware of your spirit guide or spirit guides assisting you through the process of this purification? Love to hear if anybody wants to share. Michaela?
I feel like I'm going through that at the moment, and I feel like something that's a real big thing that's standing in my way, which is maybe related to the facade thing, is that feeling of being alone. And I'm realizing that I'm having to like really accept that emotion. And so in that moment, there is no one there. But I'm really noticing that even if I'm only in that spot just for a little bit, it's not long either side of that I do feel supported and that I am getting a sense of God. So I have faith that there are people there, but I realize I have to feel that there is no people there. And that's, it's yeah, I feel like I'm sort of stepping into the fire and staying for as long as possible, which might even just be a couple of seconds and then getting out again. But I'm definitely feeling supported around it.
Cool. Yeah, I just went through an experience where I went on a road trip and left this secure home of Robin and Tom that is very stable and loving. And I was just, I was in this utmost aloneness, feeling of desolate. No, there's no love in the world. It's just me alone, alone, alone. And it took me 5 hours of going through that to realize, wait, I have a spirit guide. Why didn't I talk to my spirit guide? And as soon as I asked for my spirit guide, they're like, yeah, well, how can you feel your loneliness and your aloneness if we're right here in your energy field? So just exactly what you were saying, Michaela, is it's like there's certain things that we just got to feel because it's the feeling in our childhood was aloneness, utmost aloneness in the midst of a furnace of whatever the emotions are that we're going through. So, yeah. Anybody else wanted to contribute that you've felt that process of being kind of in the washing machine or the furnace of a lot of inner change and purification? That's a bit of
Let
a
me
question.
rephrase the question actually.
Yep.
How do you guys feel that at some point we're going to have to go through the furnace ourselves of purifying our sins? Just the way the cleric is going to go through and went through and is probably in celestial spirit by now. Yay. But what does it bring up for you that we're going to have to and have probably have already gone through the purification process where it's our sins that had to be purified out of us? What's it bring up for you guys?
Michael?
For me, I hope through this study that I will have less resistance and I won't compound my suffering by also resisting it.
Right.
And I just hope I'm very sober and I enter into it and fully feel it.
For myself at this point, the block I'm working through is that, but it wasn't my fault. I never had a chance. There was so much stacked against me. I was meant to be corrupted. I was meant to become this damaged person. And that's the block I'm processing through right now, which I hope will help me to accept whatever I need to go through. But that layer right there is what I'm feeling about right now. Like I never had a chance. Look how much I got corrupted. I've absorbed a lot more of my mother's darkness than I wanted to believe. And now I'm gonna have to feel all those nasty emotions and get them out. In the meantime, see how I've done those damages to others and I never had a chance. I mean, that's not true, but that's what it feels like to me right now. And so that is a layer that is a block to surrendering to having to be purified so that the sin can be removed from me.
Yeah. It almost feels like that's the layer of purification in itself, Mila. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're doing the layer of purification to get to more purification, deeper layers. And Michaela was next.
The thing that I'm finding hard and just overwhelms me is that we have to choose to go into it. We have to choose to step into this, which that just seems ridiculous, you know, when it's just so big and your whole life you've been trained to not choose it, and now you have to choose it, and there needs to be something on the other side that's big enough to pull you through that choice. That just seems stupid to me.
All right.
Like,
Yes.
Find that? Is that what you mean? Like, how are you going to find a willingness so big that you're willing to go through it? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, especially when nobody knows about God. Like, it just feels like we're set up to fail, like what you were saying. It just, I mean, it just trips me out that we've got to somehow find the thing beyond it to drive us through it when we don't even want to go through it, like it just feels hard.
Sounds like a good mini tantrum to have.
Yeah. I feel it.
All right, Judith.
Yeah, I don't feel any kind of purification. I always feel like the repercussions of my bad actions, like the food, or if I drink wine or something, when you know better, and I feel like if I don't make a change now, I'm going to have a really awful amount of regret once we start to grow and realize, oh my God, what did I give up on? Here we are on Earth during this time with these people here with us. We can make so much change and we kind of throw it all away because of my fear or my wanting to just get into physical addictions because I just don't want to feel my feelings, So that's what I've been kind of feeling about, like the potential of regret. And then also about like the guides. For a long time, I've been in a lot of this rebellion about, oh no, my guide isn't here, my guide isn't helping me, this and that. And then I came across a video today. It was the one of Sonia before the assistance group in 2016. And so I just turned it on and she was saying, yeah, we try and guide people with all the clicks that you do on your computers. And I can't tell you how many videos have come across my path in the past months. If I'm thinking of a problem, a video will come up and it'll be about my problem. So it just shows you that there is truly influence going on, even if we feel that there isn't. And even if I'm in a tantrum where no one's helping me, which kind of goes to how I felt as a child, my mother wasn't there for me, my parents weren't there for me. So
that's faith building
it is.
The clicks are like exactly the answer to your question, kind of like Mila was pointing out. You have the question, you almost forget that you have the question from a day ago or 10 days ago or whatever, and then you're led to the exact answer. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was wondering, Judith, about when we try to, say I desire to drink wine, but then I try to scare myself into saying someday you're going to regret it. I wonder if I'm trying to use fear to try to change my behavior, or try to anticipate I should fear the punishment to change my behavior when maybe, I mean, that technique worked when we were children. But right now, I think what I've decided that I think I'm attacking myself when I do that. I'm going to stop. I'm going to let myself feel, but I want it. So I'm going to try with that angle first, because at some point I started to feel the pain every time I did that to myself. I'm like, this hurts. I think this is self-abuse. I got to stop. So now I'm just saying, what if I just feel the motivation that I want what I want? Just feel the motivation and see where that takes me. So I haven't come to the end of that experiment yet, but I think I'm not fighting myself so hard. Because you're trying to.
Yeah, but self-punishing and yelling at myself for like, why do you do this? You know better, you know, and it's like, that's not helping you. So of course I found a video and I just typed it in, you know, and it was like, ask yourself why you feel the need to do that. Like, I want to relax. Well, why do you need that to relax? What's going on that you have to relax from, you know?
But feel the motivation.
Yeah.
What I want is I want to drink a glass of wine. That is
Yeah.
own the motivation emotionally. And then somehow that tend to open more doors into the emotion. And then at some point, like today, I was feeling into the competitiveness I had with another coworker. I felt the competitiveness and I'm going, oh, there's a motivation right there. I felt it a little bit. And then as I was driving home, I decided to go all the way to the end of that motivation. And it was very nasty. But by the time I got to the end of it, I started to cry and I said, who is this hurt child? Where is she? Can I please connect with her? I just want to love her. So I had this desire to love this hurt part of me that is this competitive and nasty with other people, especially women. And I felt like that was a turning point right there because I want to love this hurt person. I could feel like, how hurt are you that you want to feel this? So by going to the end of it, I was able to find a door. If I just felt a little bit and then going, that's a terrible thing to do, get away from it. It didn't take me to the end when the end opened the door. So now I want to find this hurt child because I want to love her, not to change her. Somebody must be hurting real bad if I want to do this to other people. So try it out, feel into the motivation, see where it takes you.
Yeah, but I really relate to Judith and what you were saying, Mila, but it's really hard not to judge when we see those really nasty motivations in ourselves, or I want that chocolate, you know, like just to let ourselves feel it without the judgment coming in that's the key, hey? It's a trick. It's tricky. All right, let's go on unless there's any last comments on that. Okay, so another quote here from page 149 in the PDF version. I would that I could save you from all that lies between now and then in the pain of the purifying process. But the seed has been sown and the harvest must be reaped. But in the reaping you will find the blessing that maketh rich. So the question is, what do you think is meant by in the reaping you will find the blessing that maketh rich? So reaping the harvest of our past unloving things we've done, our past sins. And in reaping that, you'll find the blessing. Any comments on what that means? Michaela?
I've really found this to be true. Just like with Mila saying, going in for the experiment, it's like I've been going in for the experiment and knowing that I'm doing something that is shit and I've never done it before. But I'm like, all right, God, you need to show me that that what I'm doing is the right path. And so now I'm around me and paying attention to see what's changing and to see what's the gifts that are coming back, and I'm seeing them, and I'm so grateful that even for the smallest thing that we're able to connect to and to heal, there is a response to it. And so that's what's pulling me through, I guess.
So, Michaela, you were breaking up just a little bit, but if I understand it right, you're saying you'll go through a process of purification in yourself or changing inwardly, and then you notice outwardly a positive response, say, from people around you. Is that what you're referring to? Or, yeah.
Yeah, like from people around me, from my kids, just different things that are happening, and I'm just really like clutching to that at the moment as a sign that I'm doing okay, even though I feel the worst I've ever felt in my life, you know.
I know it's so ironic on this path. It's like we can feel like absolute crap, but that's often the time that we're really growing because we're finally feeling our inner pain and our motivations that are yucky and delving deep. It's so ironic. Like we feel like we're doing crap, but we're actually going pretty good sometimes. It's hard to know, but I love that you're pointing out that it's the feedback outwardly in your law of attraction of getting more loving responses around you, showing you that, okay, no, I'm going the right way. I'm changing. Something's shifted here in me. That's beautiful and faith building. Yeah. Anybody else want to make comments about in the reaping you will find the blessing that makes rich? And how pain perhaps is a part of this process for us, even though we don't enjoy it. Judith, go ahead.
Well, the more you reap about yourself, the more you learn about yourself. And I think there's a reference in the book too, isn't it, about, the learning about ourselves is the most important thing that we can do, good or bad.
Right. So I interpret that as, and correct me if this is not what you were saying, the more you reap, meaning the more you allow yourself to really tune in and feel the pain of what you've sown and the sin that you're currently sitting in, the more you have the chance to learn about yourself and grow. And is that what you're saying, Judith?
Yeah, the more
Am I
you know
getting
about
that?
yourself, because the pain is a part of you too. So.
Well, it shows where we've made wrong actions in the
Yeah.
past and that we can correct when we feel it. Yeah. Cool. Anybody really enjoying feeling their pain these days? I'm just curious. Is anybody like, yes, I'm in it. I'm in my pain. This is good. I'm feeling it. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. Michael, you are?
I'm starting to feel some pain. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'm feeling some regret and some remorse. And I've actually had the fleeting feeling that I would welcome the pain that the law of attraction is going to bring to me, and that I'm not trying to avoid it.
Beautiful. Yeah. Wow. There's a surrender in that. I feel the surrender and the softness in that. Thank you, Michael.
The irony is that because you're repenting, there is no law of attraction coming your way. You've already lifted yourself above it. Like it's kind of an irony where you're going, I really deserve this pain, which is when you're really repenting, from my experience. But then by repenting, you've now gone past the law of compensation, from what I've learned. So there's no more punishment. You're already in it and you're already past it, which when you're truly repenting, you feel was not enough. You feel
maybe there's
more.
layers. Could there just be layers? I mean, I'm feeling some and then releasing, and then I feel some more, and
Yeah.
Could it be like that?
Yeah, I guess I learned from you.
Right.
I just felt a moment of like, I deserve more punishment. And I go, wait a minute, can we addendum that phrase?
Good catch, Mila.
Yeah.
I don't want more suffering if it's not due to me.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So I'm just curious what this process of purification, so reaping what we've sown in terms of sin, and especially once we get to the spirit world, it becoming blatantly clear, and we're very sensitive to the pain that we've caused and that we're holding. and within that, finding the blessing. What does this show us about God? This process that God is, having us all go through. There's no shortcuts or exits or, I mean, I guess the shortcut's doing it, repenting with God is the shortcut. But what does this show us about God? Michael?
I think one thing it shows is that God supports and encourages authenticity. The mercy, the divine release comes when we're fully involved and willing to feel it all. And I think God wants, it's part of making us be feeling souls, feeling beings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Said. Well said.
Yeah.
The
it's,
authenticity.
yeah. Okay.
Mila?
No, it's a beautiful perspective. I've not considered that, but wow, I felt that. Thank you.
All right. Well, for me, I noted here a few notes that I'll just read off. So that God really wants us to learn from our unloving actions so that we understand what love is and what is loving. And just this feeling that God's hand is guiding us through the whole process, and that pain is a loving consequence to help show us the way towards love. I mean, I would like to have the feeling Michael expressed of just welcoming the pain of the consequence and fully taking it in. I still don't enjoy entering, parts of myself and my pain very, very easily. So, but pain is a beautiful gift I see that God's using to show us. All right. So does anybody have any, anything else from this chapter or from our discussion today? Michael, go ahead.
We passed over 2C if you want to go back and touch on that.
Oh, did we? Okay. 2C. Thank you, Michael. I skipped one. Oh yeah, let's go back to that one. Michael, do you want to read it? Would you?
Do you feel you will have a fearful awakening when you enter the spirit world? Or do you feel that your knowledge of divine truth teachings will assist your transition?
Yeah, thanks. Judith?
Well, I think even if we consider we might have quite limited knowledge at this point, I think that it's going to make a huge difference in all of our lives, knowing what we know, especially considering the fact that the majority of people know nothing. And, everything is going to be a surprise. And I think we also know that if we run into problems, we can ask for help. And that if we're not getting the help, then there's a reason that falls onto us to kind of change how we're asking and what we're feeling.
Yep. Selena?
When I was feeling through that question, I got this funny image of a toddler with their little plastic tool belt, being like their dad, and they're gonna play with these tools and they know what they're supposed to do. But when we pass, we actually are gonna get the real tools, but at least we practiced with the pretend tools for a while. So we have some tool knowledge, but when we get there, we get to actually build something.
Oh, I love that image.
Yeah,
That's
I did too. That was great. Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
us. Well, except right now, I think I feel like I have the real tools on my belt, but it's
Yeah.
probably more like just the toddler with the pretend tools that I've heard
Yeah.
about and some I've applied and have experienced. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Selena. Mila?
I have two things. One is my concern is that whatever issues I'm still in denial about, that issue is gonna kind of take over. Any addiction that I'm still in denial about has the potential of kind of hijacking or possessing my desires after I pass. That's one concern. The plus I have is that any strong emotional desire or bond I create now, like say with my spirit guides, that emotional connection is the one that will then carry me through on the other side, where I will emotionally, because I'm fond of my spirit guides, because I'm fond of, say, my dad, I'm open to them emotionally, and I cultivate that relationship now all the time, then that emotional bond can be used to support me. Not just intellectual, but it's the emotional strength and intensity. And especially if the bond is towards God. If, let's say, we have a strong desire for truth, or we have a strong desire for something, anything towards God, then that can be, I feel as if we create a desire, it becomes a two-way road that our guides can also use to access us, to kind of knock on our door, and we'll listen to it. But then it's the denied issues that, keeps me awake at night. What else am I still in denial of that would be running the show? That's what I feel I'm learning from all the previous books. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm somehow reminded of Mandy, the channeling that Mary did of Mandy, who was a American Christian woman who passed of breast cancer. And she was surrounded by a group of women, and they were all hovering together fearfully. But at one point, they were all being plucked away. And she just, for the first time, just sincerely yearned for God, like just put out that emotional bonded, like, can you please help me? She was in her utter terror. And immediately there was this beam of light that came down, and she was removed from where she was in the spirit world and immediately in a brighter location that was safer. And so that really stands with me because I have a lot of terror and fear in me. And what Judith was saying is when you really, you ask for the help, it comes if you're really sincere in your heart. So we know that that's really helpful, that we know that you can do that in the spirit world. A lot of people don't even know that.
But we need to cultivate it. It needs to become something that you constantly, it's like with Aphraar, when who was talking to him at that time? Was it Omra? That Aphraar spent his whole life cultivating a love for fellow men. It was something he developed over and over and over, that it became a dominant part of his soul. And that desire carried him through to the desire to save the little boy. And then, so it's like Selena talking about the little tool belt. I think the little tool belt we can develop right now are the emotional connections to whatever it is that in those times will come to our aid. This is a two-way door.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good point. Yep. Anybody else? Michaela?
I think like one of the tools that we can cultivate that, we're fortunate having learned this stuff is the sleep state, and trying, desiring to get more from it. Or even one thing that I've been doing lately, which I don't know what it's doing for me, but just like accepting that there's 8 hours of the night, 8 hours of the day where I am in a place where I can be doing different work and I can be engaging in a different way, and I'm not constrained by the physicalness. So just putting prayers towards that, like I think that's a huge thing that can help us as we pass, because we're already engaging with it now.
Good one.
Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, right before bed, setting that intention of sleep state. I love that. Did anybody...
just wanting the truth, that's
yeah. And then having to be sincere that we really want it. Like getting to that place of sincerity.
Or not wanting the truth.
Really want, it's like, okay, I'm in denial of some stuff I don't really want to know, but maybe you could give me the easiest thing I'm in denial of first. I don't know. That kind of thing. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, is there any last comment about the chapter or anything that anybody wanted to add? Selena.
I really liked how well Aphraar could see Rael's compassion when he was talking to the cleric, and how the cleric was just completely oblivious to it, but he could just feel how much he cared about him and how much compassion he had. And I even found myself reading it, trying to hear his voice, how he was conveying, like he just, to Aphraar was just rich with compassion, like he, and the guy was just oblivious to it. So even that's such a huge part of a person's progression, is to be able to feel those things in others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you would try the patience of an angel. It was something like that, right?
Yeah.
That they mentioned in the chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And he was being to Aphraar, like just like so angelic. It's like, how could, it's almost like you're probably, he's feeling it, how even just that, what he's feeling from Rael wouldn't just flip that guy over right now, but he can't even feel it. Like he's not aware at all.
Yeah. It must be how Jesus and Mary feel about being around all of us.
That's
We're just
exactly
oblivious, and they're
right.
just
And I
pouring this
felt
love
that, like
and
I'm
this
trying to
truth.
feel that what people keep saying, that's what they're projecting. And I'm going, but I don't feel it. Just feels like criticism to me. Yeah.
Thanks, Selena.
You're
Michael.
welcome.
More than in other chapters, I've started to look at this one for tips that I can apply to myself, things that stand out for me. I think it had to do with the amount of time that we've had to deal with it, but also that the cleric's message. But there's a lot of layers and stuff in here, and the more I read it, the more I'm just starting to get a desire to apply what I'm actually reading, and to help me.
Cool.
So thanks.
That's great. Yeah, it's easy to just sit back and read it and even delve in deeply and feel it, but not necessarily put it to practice for yourself, because that's where the hard work comes in. Alicia, did you want to make any comments on how it's been for you today in group, or listening, or?
Honestly, it's I definitely wanted to speak many times, but I've felt such a deep love for all and appreciation for each of you individually, and that was really heartwarming. That was like the biggest gift for me. Every time I stopped, and because I was really listening to everything too, and yeah, I'm going to do this a little bit more for sure. Maybe not in this group, but I mean, generally, I'm going to be more aware of that. So yeah, it brought up, of course I had lots of things I wanted to say, but everybody said what I would have said, more or less. And yeah, it was really just feeling a deep appreciation for each of you.
Cool.
Right. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
guys.
This was a intense topic, and we started scratching away at it. Okay, I will end the recording now.